Hello, everybody. My name is Jim Farmer. I'm the outreach coordinator for Galeca. Welcome to another in a series of Galeca Heroes talks, where the Society of LGBTQ Entertainment Critics, home to the Dorian Awards for the best in film, television, and Broadway, spotlights standout, even groundbreaking works, artists, and their meaningful work. This time, Caragh Donley, a Galeca member who is now a senior producer of the Kelly Clarkson Show, chats with Trace Lysette, star of the poignant adult family drama Monica, and the film's director, Andrea Pallaoro. Take it away, Caragh.
Oh, well, thank you. I realize when you say it's the Galeca Heroes, does that include me, just so I know, or no? Just these guys, right?
You are definitely a hero.
Oh, all right. I look forward to my cape. Thank you for being here, Andrea, Trace. So
Thank you.
lovely to see you again. And actually, the first thing I just want to say congrats on the Independent Spirit nomination, which made me when I heard it, I actually yelled down the hall, but at work.
I did too.
Oh yeah.
Oh, wow.
No, it's
Thank you.
everybody at the show who loved and adored having you there was so over the moon for you. So
Oh,
well
thank you
deserved.
so much.
I guess actually I was debating whether to start in current day or go back to the beginning of the movie. And I think like going back to the beginning, like how did this come about for both of you guys? Because I assume you came at it from different places. That Andrea, I don't know if you were developing and you heard about Trace, or if you guys could both just weigh in on the path to get this
Yes,
made.
of course. I guess I will start since the project started about 7 years ago. I think that's how long it has been, and it came from a need to really delve into the complexities and the dynamics of abandonment. The consequences of abandonment, what it means to be abandoned, but also to be not to be recognized, not to be seen. And in particular, this story, the story of Monica, is inspired by the story of a very dear friend of mine. And so as my writing collaborator and I developed the script, it was, the most important choice, the most consequential choice was to find, the actress, the artist that could embody this character, could bring this character to life. And I was looking for the very rare talent that could reveal, so much complexity with sincerity and with dignity. And I saw so many candidates for this role, over 30. And I saw a lot of very talented actresses and non-actresses too. But it was when I met Trace that I recognized, that talent. That was confirmed right away when, we shot the very first day on set. It was an experience I will never forget because, Trace set the tone right away for the film that this was going to be, and for the type of energy that we were going to have on set. The very first scene, and Trace, I will just, like I just remember that moment because it was so significant for me. But it was the scene where Monica locks herself into the bathroom after meeting her mother for the first time after so many years, and she calls Jimmy, and she has that really emotional conversation. She leaves him a message on the phone, and again, the level of complexities that she was able to reach and reveal really blew us all away. And it was one of those moments that I was part of my whole crew, and we were experiencing together something that was so very special, and that was the film, really.
Trace, I don't know what you remember about that, but
Yeah.
was the character always trans, or was that something that Trace brought with it when you met her?
Oh no, the character was always trans, and again, it was inspired by a very dear friend of mine, a trans woman, and that was never. In fact, every candidate I looked for, and I saw, and I met with to find the person I could sculpt this character with was trans.
Oh, okay. How did you, Trace, what got you into, into that room with him in the first place?
Well, first of all, I'm still mourning the first half of that scene in the bathroom because it
Yeah,
didn't make it in the final cut. But there was this whole like into the mirror straight on moment that then transitioned to the toilet. And so you guys got to see like the second half of that scene. But that was the very first scene that we shot. Um, as far as like how I got involved, I was sent the script in December of 2016. So it's been that long.
yeah,
Yeah. And then I auditioned that next year. And we didn't, there was times we didn't know if it was gonna still happen. We had a pandemic. We lost Anna Paquin at one point.
yeah.
There was just a lot of things happening. And then eventually we got funding and we were able to go shoot it. But yeah, it was an audition process. I mean, a lot of people have said, "Oh, did they write this for you?" And I'm like, "No, I had to fight for this."
Yeah, but when you were reading it and auditioning, did it feel like it was written for you, even though it wasn't? I don't know if you're reading it going, oh my God, this touch point, that touch point, that could have been written.
Yeah, anytime I'm reading anything that I might try to do or audition for or take on, I'm always trying to find pieces of me in the character. I always try to find the heart before I find the shell, because the shell, I mean, not to say that's the easy part, but all of that, the way she talks, the way that she moves, the
Yeah,
wardrobe, if there's any prosthetics, all of that can be worked out if you need a dialect coach, whatever. But if there's no heart, if there's nothing I can connect to personally, then I know that, I may not be the right person for that role, but I saw a lot of myself in Monica. Um, but I also saw that it was written older. It was like a 50 something year old trans woman.
yeah,
And so she had a different upbringing than me in a lot of ways. And there were a lot of things that were different, but there was still the heart was still there. And the journey, the strength, the abandonment piece, and just finding, I guess, the heart and soul of her, I knew I would be able to connect to. So
yeah.
that's why I knew it was worth fighting for.
One thing that like, there are many things I loved about the movie, but the thing I think that I like the most, and I think I talked to you about it the day you were on the show too, is that there's none of that origin story kind of thing in here, that it just picks up with Monica at the age that she's at, in the situation she's in, and there's none of that thing, which I imagine you probably get, Trace, and I know I do, of when did you know? When did it happen? When? And it's backward looking, which does nobody any good because you are where you are
Yeah.
now. Was that deliberate, Andrea, for both you guys to not, we don't need to know her backstory. We need to know where she is right now.
Yes, that was very deliberate from the beginning. Even before writing the script, I knew that that is how I wanted to introduce the character and stay with the character. And really, my main objective, throughout the making of this film was to, penetrate and capture the internal world of this character, like the emotional and psychological world of Monica, but without really the need to, follow a very specific or formulaic story, or to use, for example, flashbacks or anything like that. Like I just wanted to stay with her. I wanted to really for it to be an observational character study.
Yeah. Was that important to you, Trace? Like you
Yeah,
didn't
that was my favorite thing about her, is that she was this, well, she had lived this, well lived in, for lack of a better term, like trans life. She was kicked out when she was 16 and had been living this way ever since. And I deeply related to that because, I guess I transitioned. I mean, I was what you called androgynous in the 90s, like in high school. And,
yeah,
I've lived as a woman longer than I lived as anything else, a boy or whatever label you want to put on me. Um, I've lived as a woman longer than anything else. And I saw that in Monica, that she had lived and as a woman and in this trans existence for a long time. And that's rare because a lot of scripts tend to focus on newly transitioned people or people wanting to transition or people questioning, or the transition story, or the medical ins and outs of it. And it's like, this did none of that. And so that was my favorite thing about her.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of it, it seems like when you see things that might be well intended, but they kind of wallow in the transness of it all.
Yeah.
And this, again, I know we've talked about it, but for both of you, it's truly one of the most empathic movies I think I've ever seen, where everybody, you sympathize, you understand, you want to give everybody a hug in this movie. But it's not about it's about family more than anything else. I mean, that's what I felt. I don't know if you guys both felt that way, that's what it is. It's about a mother and daughter. That's whatever their backgrounds are, doesn't matter. It's about a family apart trying to claw back together. But did you guys see it that way too?
Absolutely, yes. In fact, for me, the paradigm that Monica offers is very, very universal, and it's something that we can all relate to in one way or another. It's something that is so inherently human, and it's something that we all experience to a certain degree. So to be able to see ourselves in Monica and to understand, hopefully, ourselves better, and the choices that we made, our behavior, but also the behavior of the people around us. It's really the main objective I've always had for this film.
Yeah, that's. I mean, did you sort of feel the same, Trace, that it's a family story? It's the fact that Monica's trans is almost secondary in a lot of ways. But did you find it to be?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's the Trojan horse of this whole project, is that we don't harp on the transness that much. I mean, we really don't at all. It's more of just about these two human beings who have this history, and then what's left of their connection, and with the time that they have left. That was one of the most powerful things for me. And then, of course, having Patty play my mom was the biggest gift, because our connection was pretty instant, and the chemistry was there right from jump. Just how she works and how primal she is. It was kind of, I hate to say easy, but the connection came easily for us.
Yeah, and that's the core of it that makes it so fascinating to me, is that relationship with you two that seemed a full 360 kind of thing. What for both of you two, like Andrea, for you as the creator of all of it, and Trace, you at the center of it, what was the hardest or the toughest scene, moment, any that you guys both had? Was there something that required a lot of staying up till 3 a.m. the night before, getting yourself ready, and going through the ringer? Was there one for both of you?
Well, yes, there are certainly there are very specific scenes that I was very apprehensive about, and for different reasons, either for their technical requirements or for the emotional exploration of the characters. And for me, like the first scene my collaborator and I wrote was the scene in the bathtub. The moment, I call it really a moment of recognition, between mother and daughter. And I knew that for me was the heart of the film, and so I knew that like the whole film was really not just built around it, but was dependent on the power of that scene. And so when you have a scene like that, when like the pressure is really strong. And so but I have to say, like, for a director perspective, one of the most extraordinary things that can happen on set is to be amazed, to be surprised, by what your collaborators bring to the table, what your actors give you, reveal for you, and that happened in that scene in such a great way, thanks to the extraordinary Patricia Clarkson and Trace, of course, like what they built, what they gave us in that moment, is something that really exceeded my expectations, and they were able to show complexities and subtleties that I had just dreamed of, really, up to that point. And it was another one of those scenes where it was something that the whole crew reacted to, that it was a communal experience, like a communal crying, really, like in front of what Trace and Patty gave us.
Yeah. Would you feel the same about that particular scene? Another one?
That scene, it was important for me to not overdo it in that scene, because I felt like Monica was still a bit guarded and maybe not fully understanding if her mom is realizing who she is or not, just kind of like, and then having been on her own for so long, that was a complicated feeling for Monica. But I think the hardest part for me was not any of the art or the long days or any one scene in particular. I expect artistic challenges to come. That's part of being an actor, and I love that. The hardest part for me was making this beautiful film, getting into Venice, getting an 11.5-minute standing ovation, and then having the press not write about it the next day because Harry Styles and Chris Pine are spitting on each other or whatever's happening. Like, they didn't even spit on each other. It was just like a made up story. But seeing us make history and then be overlooked, and then fighting for distribution, and then getting rave reviews all year long. Critics pick New York Times, 98% on Rotten Tomatoes, 84% on the critic side, endlessly positive reviews, making history, and then being told, oh, well, you have to make the top 5 in the lists. Well, what are the lists? The end of year lists that the journalists make that are not even 100% opinion based. They factor in who has money, who the Oscar contenders could be. So you are at the mercy of these lists that factor in money, and then those lists determine whether or not our distributor is going to give us money for a proper awards campaign. And it really revealed to me how a lot of this is bought and paid for in terms of critical acclaim. And critical acclaim means something far different to me than it does an actress who's already established. And so for me, it could be life-changing. And so that's been the hardest thing for me, is to see that the playing field is not level. Even when you do excellent work, it's sometimes still an uphill battle, because it's not all about the work.
Yeah, well, it always takes one project, one person, one thing to break the ground that everyone can follow after. But I've always felt, being that first one, which you guys are in so many ways.
It sucks.
It's hard, because you have to pave the way for others, and you may not get the due that you should be shown. But actually going back to the Venice thing for both of you, which, it should have gotten a lot more attention, but just within that moment, how did that feel? For both of you, I guess, because that's something. That's an amazing thing. How did that feel just within that moment for both of you? Andrea, you want to go first?
For me, really, that is burnt into my mind, into my heart, in such an indelible way. And it was really not just to see the reaction of these 1,000+ spectators, cinephiles, really, that had such an emotional experience watching the film, but it was especially seeing that, celebrating Trace and Patricia and their performances, you know, like, and I remember turning around, you know, and seeing, you know, your face, Trace, and Patty's, and you know, that to me was the most powerful moment, really, is to see you taking in, you know, all that love, admiration, enthusiasm, and seeing what, you know, our work together like was able to mean for so many people.
Yeah, that's
Yeah, it was a beautiful day. It was one of the most beautiful days of my life. And you know, I think it was a little different for me in that I was probably the only trans person in that room. There might have been a few others scattered about, but I just knew that, you know, I knew my immediately after the applause and I was able to exit and go to the bathroom and have a moment with myself. I immediately knew that it may have meant something else to everyone else than it meant to me, in that I, as a trans person, had the foresight to know that, okay, I don't know if this is going to mean what it would mean if I was a cis actress who just got an 11.5-minute standing ovation at Venice. If all of those questions start to roll in, like, okay, so will we get distribution in 24 hours? Like, I know that we probably would if I was XYZ ingenue, who was like, you know, not trans. And so I started to think like, oof, does this mean safety? Does this mean distribution? Does this mean we'll land in a good streamer? Like, what does this mean? You know, like, for me personally and for the broader trans community. And so I kind of was able to witness, I guess, people being naive, for lack of a better term, you know, because I have a different life experience, and so I know that it comes with other things, and so it was a complicated tornado of emotions for me that day, but I still cherish that day, and it will live in my mind and my heart forever. So.
it's I'm one of those people who was naive because I thought after you were on our show that would be the beginning of like everything. And but I still believe in that. As you were saying that, I did start to think, because you're a trailblazer and a legend and all of that to so many of us, do you enjoy that mantle at all? Do you like being that trailblazer? Does it feel like too much pressure for you?
At times, yeah. I mean, I'm 42. You got to understand, like, you know, I was cast as the lead in my elementary school play back in the 80s. You know, that was the start of my, I guess, theatrical journey, right?
What did you play,
And
by the way? Just
Yes.
it was a play called Melvin the Magnificent, and I played Melvin. And so from Melvin to Monica, right? In Dayton,
Yeah.
Ohio from Dayton, Ohio in the Rust Belt to standing ovation in
back to
Venice.
Ohio, back to
Back to Ohio, and then to Venice.
Yes.
But, you know, where am I going with this? All of that got stomped on in adolescence and through bullying and through, you know, just being this flaming queen on the playground and like people not knowing what to do with me. And then finding theater again through the form of like a teenage, you know, being a teenage drag queen, working in the clubs and the bars of Dayton, Ohio and Columbus. And then, you know, funding my own theatrical training, like actor training in New York City at different acting studios in my mid-20s. And then starting that journey stealth in the acting world, and then bouncing around from TV to TV show for 10 years plus, and then finally getting a shot at a leading role. And then making history in Venice. I don't know. It's been a lot. And I have been praying and manifesting that this next chapter is softer and lighter and abundant in terms of like, you know, opportunities for the next gig, maybe not having to audition anymore so much and just dealing with offers. You know, I would love to get to that stage in my 40s, you know, where I have options and I don't have to fight so hard and I can maybe buy a house one day. Like that is what I'm trying to usher in. So to answer your question, I do not love that part of it. I don't love being a trailblazer. I would love to be a little more carefree, and
Yeah.
you know, that doesn't happen unless our allies get on board and are accomplices with us in this journey. Because, you know, as you know, as a fellow trans person, there aren't very many of us in positions of power or who have weight to throw around, and so it's going to take a broader community, a broader rainbow tribe to like figure this out. You
It's
know,
unfortunately, it always has to start somewhere, like I was saying, and that's the hard part. Like the guy who learns how to juggle on a unicycle, he didn't just suddenly get to do that. He had to get a lot of pins falling on his head before he mastered it. And I don't know that that analogy makes sense to anyone but me, but it seemed good in my head.
It does, it does.
But you know, just one more thing I'm curious about with both of you guys is looking at the Monica experience, like the full getting it ready, making it, everything since. How do you think that experience has made you different in any way? If you're wiser, if there's a technique you learned or something, but what has made you a different human from when you started that till now?
Beautiful
you
question.
go,
Trace. You want to start?
first. That's a hard one. Oh my goodness.
Yeah, they said that I get paid extra if I start you. So
It is a very hard one, but you know, for me, like, you know, with every film really that you believe in and that you fight for from the beginning, and we did fight for this one very much. And as I said, it took us more than 7 years. You know, it's, you meet so many people and you create a kind of family, really, you know, during the making of a project like this. And you have to, you know, find the, you know, build trust and you know, feeling the love and collaborate and learn from each other and being inspired by each other. And that is what I take with me, you know, in this project in particular. You know, it's like all the beautiful people that fought with us, with me and with us, to make it happen, and that believed in it, and that did it not for, not to make money, not to, but just because they knew that it was an important story to tell, and that they believed in its value and in its form, and they believed in these performances, really. And so that is really the most beautiful thing that you can ask for in a project, is that type of collaboration, the type of commitment.
yeah, but well, now I hate to put pressure on you yet again, Trace, but
Yeah.
is there, like, it could be like anything, but I
Yeah.
feel like people always change somehow when they do something important, and I don't know if you felt that way, like something's different.
I mean, I learned a lot about producing. I mean, I had done a few things before this, but I really had my hands in it the whole way. I just knew that this was worth showing up for over and over and over again. There's been so many times I just wanted to check out and just be like, okay, I did my part, but I don't. And then I'm like, oh, maybe I'm stronger than I thought. And, you know, again, like Andrea said, the collaboration piece, I guess it's shown me that it won't always be easy, but it's, you know, it's important to give and take, and really just understand that people come from different life experiences, and you have to have grace for everybody. You have to have grace. yeah, and it's probably my favorite thing to do is be in a bubble with other creative minds and then have something be birthed into the world that will then live on longer than any of us will.
Yeah, and I assume you've gotten that feedback from, I know we, again, talked about it before, but the feedback from whether it's a mother connecting with a daughter, regardless of trans or not, or a young trans girl saying, this has helped me. Maybe it didn't connect me with my family, but it showed me that I need to try or whatever. And you, I think it said that you've been hearing that from people, which I have a 90-year-old mom with some dementia as well. And that's what I took away from this, because I've been in many ways in a similar situation to Monica, and that's, everybody sees something different in every movie. Sorry, we're not paying the cat. I want you to know
Okay.
she was not part of this, and that makes her upset. But that's why I go back. I just felt like this is one of the most empathic movies, like where it's every person in the movie, you can feel for them. You want to help them, and that does not happen a lot. But Andrea, what have you gotten a lot of feedback as well? You know, trans or not trans, I assume it's a mix of everything.
Yes, absolutely. I've been able to travel all over the world with the film, and it has been very emotional for me to experience the reaction of different people from all over the world. And you know, the thing that meant the most to me was to see, people that only saw themselves or their experiences on the screen, and in that they felt either validated, or they felt like they were not alone. They felt understood, but also they were able to process their own experiences too. And that's the power of cinema, really. I think it's the catharsis of cinema. It's like to experience something through a character. Maybe that can be more extreme than what you have experienced, but through that catharsis, to understand something more about yourself. And I've seen it happen with this film all over, and that is the most important gift for me.
Trace, how would you say Hollywood is right now in terms of positive trans representation?
It's pretty bleak. It was a rough year for trans people, with all of the legislation and then the situation with Bud Light. I think a lot of corporate entities kind of turned their back on us, and we need them the most right now. And I mean that in like, we need you to show up when it's hard, not when it's in. Because there was a few years ago where it felt like maybe trans was going to be in for a second, and then it didn't happen, or it came and it left really fast. And then it's been tough. I haven't had an offer, since Venice. Well, I did one little indie. I take that back, but it was a very, very small part. So I saw Hunter Schafer in Hunger Games, and that was cool because I got to see a trans woman be in a big, big film, which reminded me of like when I did Hustlers. But there's little glimmers of hope, like here and there. But I think we want to have these fruitful careers where it doesn't feel like we're always wondering where the next job is coming from. And there's so many trans stories to tell that have not been told. I mean, we're not a monolith. There's so many variations of transness under this umbrella, right? Like, I'm a post-op transsexual woman who has lived stealth. I'm very on this side of the binary, and then there's all these other people in here, and we all deserve to be seen and heard and have our stories told. And so I would say that's a good question for GLAAD to break down the statistics on that, because I know I've pushed them to be really specific about getting the data about trans stories, and not just lumping us all together, but getting really specific about what trans stories are being told and which ones are not being told. And is it in the TV space? Is it in the doc space? Is it in the film, the feature space? Because we can't do anything until we have like the definite answers. As we've learned from like the Gina Davis Institute regarding representation for women, you have to get smart in order to like really present the facts and get some change. But beyond that, I think we just need to harness our own power, because we can't wait around for these big studios to care. We can't. And then the other side of that is that I don't think we always have to play roles that are specifically trans. So if there's a casting for something that doesn't ask for a trans character, I think we should still be considered for those roles, because you don't know what essence of the character is going to connect to what identity. And so I don't think the identity piece is always as important as it has been traditionally in casting, like the type, what's the type of the character or whatever. I think that sometimes can get in the way of letting marginalized folks through.
Yeah. But do you feel like sometimes, I mean, for me, different world, certainly a different story that got me where I am, but it's like box ticked that a lot
Yeah.
of what I get is the liberal world can go, yeah, no, we congratulated you. We're done.
Right.
We're like when it's the exact
Yeah.
opposite. That's
Yeah,
when
didn't
the
Jared Leto won an Oscar? What are you guys complaining about? Like, he played a trans. What is there to complain about when Eddie Redmayne and whoever else has been awarded all these years? And we're like, but what? Like, that's not. We don't see ourselves in those people. So like, it's very frustrating when they feel like the box has been checked and it hasn't been, because you're like, am I losing my mind here?
Yeah. No, I feel like everybody at Bud Light high five, like before everything happened, and then after it went, oh, we actually got out of it just fine. We did what was nice. We got some credit, and now we get credit for not doing the nice thing. Like it's a win for them. Andrea, when you hear all this, what do you think? What can be done? Sort of like in your world, in the production end of it. Is it just getting more trans writers to write stories? Is it getting more open-minded by directors and producers? Is there any glimmer that you can see in your part of the process that will help?
Well, I see, really the LGBTQ community, to have always been in any art form, really, has been always a leader, whether they told, LGBTQ stories or not, like the artists behind have always been, at the forefront of change, of any kind of change, and of the evolution of art, of culture, and I think that, we are going to make a difference if, we approach this as, the story that we need to tell and that need to be told, versus what just makes sense on paper or is financially viable or lucrative, like, because they're two separate things, but when you're motivated by that need, change can happen, and it does happen, and it's up to us to make it a priority. I think that's how change happens.
Yeah, I would like to see more political change as well, because I think it feeds everything. Because and that was just my soapbox, so y'all just get a cold drink while I go. But most people and the people passing these laws and doing all that just have literally never met a trans person in their entire life.
Exactly.
And information is like third hand. So, moms for liberty and threesomes, the threesomes part I just added, but y'all know that's what they're doing. They they put it out there. People don't know. They just take what they're hearing because the news media just feeds them the easy stuff. And I feel like if all that could change, if people could just get to know a
Exactly.
single trans person, then a lot of that goes away and Hollywood starts to go, oh, all right, well, no, they're cool now. They're back.
Exactly. And something I would like to piggyback on that by saying that, something that was very meaningful to me was, I've been in some screenings where certain spectators have actually brought up the fact that they were not sure whether Monica was trans or not, or like, no, and actually that to me was a win. That was a success because, to humanize the trans experience, like we did with a film like Monica, is so very important on so many levels. And so instead of making it just like, let's talk about this, but like to see a character that is a human being, and to approach it and to experience it like that, I think that is what is necessary and what is so very important.
It's and I hope Trace, your next movie is a comedy, because I just feel like you have that in you. I adore you with all your work, and I'm hoping you get, I don't know, like a road trip comedy or something. So
Oh, a buddy comedy, an action comedy, I'll take any of it where I'm not naked and crying the whole time. No, just kidding. I enjoy that too.
This has been an amazing conversation. Thank you, Trace. Thank you, Andrea, for
Thank you.
taking the time to do this. Thank you for sharing this film with us and the world. This has been an honor to do it. Caragh, thank you so much for taking the time as well.
Yes, thank you, Caragh.
Yes, thank you, Caragh.
My pleasure. I adore the film beyond words, and I got a lot of words. So both for doing it.
Yeah, we look forward to having similar Galeca conversations in the future. And in the meantime, please follow us on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook at Dorian Awards. Thank you all again. We really enjoyed this. Thanks so much.
Thank you, guys, from the bottom of our hearts.
Talk to you soon. See you,
Bye.
Trace.
Bye. Thank
Bye.
you.
See you, Caragh.